Okay, the concession stand open. I'm hoping the women's open, but I know the men's are. So if you want to get something at the concession stand, get it and come back and sit down here at the tables and enjoy yourself. One other thing too, please listen to the beginning and the ending, especially, okay? And you'll see how it all ties together. If I continue to remain standing, I'll turn it over to the great Khan Abadi for prayer.
Shalom, everyone. Let's reverence Yahweh. Our Father in heaven, whose name is Yahweh, this is a servant, Kwan Abadja, coming together and with a great congregation of the House of Yahweh in unity, with the body of priests as the seat of your witness, the great Kwan Israel Abel Hawkins, and through Yahshua Messiah, our high priest over the House of Yahweh. Again, we thank you today. We thank you all the time for bringing us into this great House of Yahweh to learn and to expose ourselves of what we were and to convert to your ways. We ask, Father, that you help us, you guide us and you protect us. And as we review the material tonight, I pray that you help us to understand it and to whatever is to apply to our lives so that we can be able to learn to become like you. We ask that you bless the great teacher, you continue to guide him and protect him, also the great Kwan Yadidia, and also every single one in the House of Yahweh. I pray that you help through the trials and the testings and whatever it is, Father, and give us the mind to keep persevering and doing the work of Yahweh, and to do it with joy and voluntarily. We ask that you bless our minds and bless every aspect of the House of Yahweh, in unity with the body of priests as the seat of your witness, and through Yahshua Messiah. Hallelujah, Yahweh. Praise Yahweh.
Can we get the lights?
You know, if the earth was in any other spot, now surely anyone who studied astronomy will know that if the earth was just off by a few feet, it would affect us tremendously. And if it was off by a few miles, you wouldn't be alive very long. So why did Yahweh place us here, you know, the way that he's placed us here right now? Why did he place us out on the like out in a desert territory where there's no other galaxies around us, and we're far out on one little finger, you know, like here's our galaxy, here's my arm, and we're way out here about the last point just before you get to the nail. Why did he put us there?
Earth. Home. Of all the planets NASA has explored, none have matched the dynamic complexity of our own. Deserts, tropical forests, icy poles, massive storms rage over land and oceans. A unique atmosphere protects and insulates us. Liquid water spans its vast surface, and a delicate balance of systems gives way to a kaleidoscope of life. Earth is a very special place. From the vantage point of space, the perspective of sky and sea, and all across the land, we study our planet not only to learn about it, but also to protect it.
They know in heaven that Yahweh is written out, everything he's going to do. And every one of those prophecies, they know is going to be fulfilled. And they got their hopes up. And they're anxiously waiting for the identifications of the very elect. Now, brethren, each of you have the opportunity of being the very elect right now. This is the time for it right now. In the book Unveiling Lucifer, War in Heaven, I don't know if you remember this. It was a 6-day war. War in heaven. The war in heaven prophesied in Revelations 12:7 and various other scriptures started after sundown, Sabbath, July the 16th, 1994, which is the first day of the week, Yahweh's way, with the first in a stream of 21 asteroids striking the planet of Jupiter. This never-before-seen show lasted 6 days, with the remaining 20 asteroids continually pounding Jupiter.
In mid-July, major telescopes on Earth and in space will be trained on planet Jupiter for an encounter that could be one of the most significant astronomical events in history. A string of over 20 ice and dust fragments from an ancient comet will plummet into Jupiter, causing massive explosions. Geologist Eugene Shoemaker, astronomer Carolyn Shoemaker, and amateur astronomer David Levy found the comet in March 1993 during a survey of the sky at Mount Palomar Observatory. No one is quite sure what effect the comet's impact will have on the planet, an immense globe of gas 1,000 times larger than the Earth. NASA's newly repaired Hubble Space Telescope took these images of the comet, its powerful mirrors bringing each fragment into sharp focus.
Well, the $64 question is, how big are the fragments? At one point some months ago, we thought the largest fragments might be about 3, maybe even 4 kilometers across, about up to 2.5 miles in diameter. If they were that large, then altogether, these comets would deliver about 100 million megatons of energy. Deliver about 100 million megatons of energy.
During the 6 days of bombardment, major observatories of the world hope to study the event. The impact sites will occur on the opposite side of Jupiter, away from Earth's view. The Galileo spacecraft, now en route to Jupiter, will view the event head-on, eventually sending back images. Come July 16th, amateur and professional astronomers alike will train their telescopes on Jupiter. Whether the event goes off with a bang or a whimper, few astronomers will miss this cosmic event of a lifetime.
So what was the answer? Did it go off with a bang or with a whimper?
Well, we've got some slides that will show you what the Hubble Space Telescope was able to see when one of the really big fragments hit.
Okay.
And what it shows, you can see the edge of Jupiter there, and then we get to see the hot fireball gas rising and expanding. It cools off and it gets up into the sunlight, and we see it continuing to expand. This is just like if you've ever seen movies of atomic bombs going off.
Okay.
This is much more powerful. This is as powerful as millions of atomic bombs going off. Then the material spreads out and falls back down on top of Jupiter, and that's what creates all the effects that we see, the clouds and the hot gas and all that stuff.
This never-before-seen show lasted 6 days, with the remaining 20 asteroids continually pounding Jupiter.
The 6 days of bombardment.
There were no strikes on the 7th day of the week, which is Saturday, Yahweh's Sabbath day, the 4th of Yahweh's 10 Commandments, found in Exodus 20, 8 through 11. According to an article in the August 1, 1994 issue of Time magazine entitled Jupiter's Bruises, This war is not completely over. This war is not completely over.
In July 1994, astronomers around the world watched with bated breath as the fragments of comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 slammed into the planet Jupiter. Dr. Kelly Fast was one of the impact's observers and is now manager of NASA's Near-Earth Object Observations program.
It was just incredible to watch. Such an impact event had never before been witnessed, let alone studied.
The impacts proved to be impressive. The fragments, some 21 in all, plunged into Jupiter's atmosphere over the course of 6 days. At impact, they were traveling at a speed of about 37 miles per second, or 60 kilometers per second.
Well, that great red eye they said was on Jupiter now has a black eye from these fragments that hit that thing.
Heating the atmosphere to at least 53,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or 30,000 degrees Celsius. The impacts created giant plumes of material from Jupiter's lower atmosphere, which rose as high as 1,900 miles, or 3,000 kilometers above the cloud tops into the stratosphere. In the aftermath, the plume splashback scarred Jupiter's atmosphere with dark clouds of impact debris, which could be seen for months as they were gradually dispersed by Jupiter's winds. Temporary changes in the aurora on Jupiter showed scientists that Jupiter's magnetosphere was influenced by particles from the impacts.
We are still able to see changes in Jupiter's atmosphere that resulted from the impacts. When the fragments of Shoemaker-Levy 9 slammed into Jupiter, they deposited their own chemical compounds, the impact processes produced some, and others were exhumed from the lower atmosphere. Some molecules, like ammonia, were destroyed by sunlight in the weeks and months after the impacts. But others, like hydrogen cyanide and water, are still seen today. From
comet science to Jupiter science to the science of impacts, the legacy of that serendipitous discovery by Carolyn and Gene Shoemaker and David Levy continues to this day, and into the future.
And you'll see what's taking place here on Earth is the same thing as taking place in this vast universe of galaxies, and not only in our solar system, but millions of others out there throughout the universe. You know, the way the heavens work, if you have ever studied astrology or astronomy, both of them show the same thing in that the heavens work like a clock. And when one planet or anything gets out of line, or a star or anything gets out of where it's supposed to be, then others are set to get that star and take it under control, because if they didn't, it would start a chain reaction that would actually start destroying all the planets, all the stars. Well, from that now, she expects or hopes, her hopes is with the nuclear bombs and what you can see in prophecy about the heavens, the trouble in the heavens is going to take place, and actually stars fall from heaven. She's going to use the nuclear devices of mankind, because she can't do it herself. She can only inspire mankind to do it. Yahweh only inspires his people to do his actions and bring forth his work. Satan inspires her people, and her hopes are to destroy, use nuclear bombs to destroy that part of the heavens, which is a long ways out from the rest of the universe. And she thinks, of course, it would get out of hand, and the rest of the universe would be eventually affected too by this very thing. And it's something that would, once it got out of hand, if Yahweh allowed it to, then it would eventually destroy everything in the heavens. This was the beginning of this 6-day war. Now, out of that 6-day war, Jupiter took a pounding, a real pounding. And of course, A few months later, Hale-Bopp, if you remember, came out from behind Jupiter and headed for the Earth. When this crossed, and the news was fascinated with it, this one that crossed over Jerusalem, this Hale-Bopp, when it crossed over Jerusalem, it formed a cross over Jerusalem. This pretty much identified who this being was that was riding in Hale-Bopp. Remember the cross. Remember the cross. 7 years interrupted. The peace plan put on hold. The mist. This is birth of the nuclear baby, page 12. The peace plan put on hold. The mist, according to prophecy. The 7-year plan was to go for a time, times, and half a time, or divided of time. The time, the first 3.5 years is gone. During the mist, we were waiting for that last half. During this time, the clock stopped. Satan was cast to earth in the midst of tribulation. During March 1997, according to the reports, the comet Hale-Bopp made its closest approach to Earth. The House of Yahweh is going to change that. That's the reason mankind was created. What we see taking place now, we see planets, NASA can finally see planets getting out of line and stars being sent to pull them back. Yes, this is taking place, and they know it. They know something is in control. Now, yes, something is in control. Well, Yahweh is in control. And praise Yahweh. And the wars in heaven, they're going to lay down their arms too, due to your instruction. And they're now waiting for the manifestations of the sons of Yahweh. They're waiting for the revealing of those who made it. We're getting down to the end now, where, she is coming in full force, Yahweh says. He says the nations are angry and your wrath has come, and the time that would come when the saints would judge the earth, and of course the Malachim too. And he says that Satan will be cast down, which we saw the war begin, and there's no doubt to me that the planet Jupiter was her throne. I don't know if y'all saw that too. On the special news program, they were talking about the planet Jupiter, and they were going to have this a special program on it. Well, they had a lot of strange facts or coincidences that had taken place on the earth, in man's history and even before man's history. And they showed the great pyramids and how they were built and how they were lined up, and they were built to a certain pattern that they said they have proof that this that they had to have a picture taken from above the earth in order to have lined these pyramids up in this certain pattern and build them in this certain way. And a great deal of knowledge is shown and went into these pyramids and the way they were built. But in this, and they showed that, that the ancient airports that was actually built on this earth, and that you can only see from the sky and so forth. And so they know that there were certain aircraft or something that transported certain beings around that used the earth as a landing spot. Well, of course, we can see this in Scripture in vaguely. Yahweh hasn't showed it plainly, but he showed it vaguely that some of these things took place before mankind inherited the earth, that it was actually turned over to the Malachim, and this was one of the planets that was used by the Malachim. But the interesting part that I thought was very interesting was what they were showing about Jupiter. In fact, others besides us on the news even called it a war of the gods and a planet of the gods. And some of the astronomers and astrologers know from the names and from the history of this planet that it is that. And but anyway, what was interesting to me was the fact that this thing could be hollow, that there could be a world inside of this, as they have some kind of proof, some proofs that it may be. They said also, if you remember the huge tornadoes that they said never diminished, and they had wind currents, 2 wind currents, one of them going one way, the other one going the other way, and it caused, or they think this is part of the cause of these great tornadoes that never diminish in power for thousands and thousands of years. This has taken place. Well, they also think that there's a reason for this, that this is some kind of electrical generator plant that turns some kind of turbine engines inside that creates electricity for the inside world of Jupiter.
Juno entered orbit on the 4th of July, 2016, and later found Jupiter's poles covered in nearly continent-sized storms that are densely clustered and rubbing together in a mind-blowing swirl. What's striking about Jupiter's polar storms is that there are actually multiple cyclones at each pole. So instead of having one polar vortex like Earth, Jupiter was observed to have as many as 8 giant swirls moving simultaneously on its north pole and as many as 5 on its south pole. Even more amazing things are lurking below. Jupiter's powerful magnetic field almost certainly springs from dynamo action in Jupiter's interior, the process by which the motion of this electrically conducting fluid is converted into magnetic energy. The exact location within the interior is a mystery that researchers are still working to solve. Astronomers have long known that Jupiter has the most intense planetary magnetic field in the solar system. It is stronger in some places and weaker in others. This uneven distribution suggests that the field might be generated by dynamo action closer to the surface, closer to the surface.
This thing could be hollow.
Closer to the surface. Jupiter's magnetic field is home to the biggest and most powerful auroras in the solar system. Unlike Earth, which lights up in response to solar activity, Jupiter makes its own auroras. It does this by tapping into power generated by its own spinning magnetic field. Induced electric fields accelerate particles toward Jupiter's poles, where the aurora action takes place. Another source of insight is Juno's microwave radiometer, which measures thermal microwaves radiating from the deep recesses of the planet, revealing structure hundreds of kilometers beneath Jupiter's thick clouds. Recent results from Juno's gravity experiment show that Jupiter's iconic belts and zones rotate as a series of cylinders down to depths of about 3,000 to 5,000 kilometers. Beneath this depth, it appears that Jupiter may be rotating as a rigid body.
I'm just relating this to you, and it could be, seems feasible, seems logical, even seems so according to the scriptures. I know that some of these huge boulders that hit this thing, they said the walls on this thing was something, they figure it was 800 miles thick and housing this world inside. And that some of these huge boulders that hit this thing could have possibly penetrated this, and because it made it look like this planet was on fire inside, they said.
At impact, they were traveling at a speed of about 37 miles per second, heating the atmosphere to at least 53,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 30,000 degrees Celsius.
Whatever, we do know that this was being used by the gods to broadcast certain radio waves to planet Earth, and we know that Satan is the prince of the air. She's called the prince of the air in every Bible. And this word air there is not just wind like we see it, like blows on the earth, but air waves, radio waves. We also know that radio waves is coming from that planet, or were coming from that planet and reaching the Earth from 2 different stations. It's only coming from one station now, they claim. One of them got knocked out during this war. But here in Astronomy magazine, it shows, it's on page 219, Jupiter, if you know, is the closest planet to Saturn. And from there, we get radio signals to Earth, and they're of different frequencies. And if you've studied the subconscious mind and how it picks up the radio signals and deciphers them and actually knows what they're talking about and records it and puts it in your subconscious mind, this is what Satan is sending to Earth to us. And they say that the subconscious mind, every subconscious mind will not pick up the same frequency. So it has to be, it's used in the stores, by the way, also. In different grocery stores and dry goods stores and things like this. It's used extensively. Broadcasting to the subconscious mind. They say that if they broadcast this in the dry goods stores, the people, to the people, that, for instance, if they have it in a nice, quiet voice, being disguised in music or something like this, and they play this, you can't hear it with your conscious mind, but your subconscious mind can pick it up, and they say, do not steal. I will not steal. It's wrong to steal. And their shoplifting cuts down by about 70%, but they cannot reach all the thieves with one frequency. And it has to be broadcast in different frequencies, and even at that, they can only reach about 70% of the people with what we know about it now. I don't know how much Satan knows. You know, nothing was hid from her. Yahweh said she walked with me. I gave her the best. You know, I put her on the biggest planet in the universe. You know what that planet is? Remember the great red dragon? Read it again. There in Revelations 12, verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads. Having 7 heads. And he described this. Well, of course, this is the leader of the physical great red dragon that's described as a beast. Remember that the first red dragon gives her her seat and great authority. Remember this? You tie this in? You got it all together? Now listen to this. Please, everyone get this. Jupiter. This comes from also this book on astronomy. Jupiter is a giant planet, larger, heavier than all other planets combined. Multicolored bands of clouds in its massive atmosphere are continuously interacting, sometimes transferring material and sometimes simply disintegrating them. The great red spot, there's a great red spot, remains unexplained. For it seems to be losing rather than gaining energy.
Scientists studying this spot have noticed that it has been changing over time. The color is deepening, and it's actually shrinking and getting rounder. Those studying it expected to therefore see the wind speeds inside the Great Red Spot increasing as the storm shrinks, like an ice skater who spins faster as she pulls in her arms. But this isn't the case.
A great red spot. Now, in Time magazine, it shows this great red spot to look like a giant eye. And they say that it moves back and forth as if it's searching out and looking at everything in view, turning and seeing everything that is going on. And they call it, of all things, a great red spot. The instant I saw this, I remembered that scripture. The great red dragon. The great red dragon.
It's a monster. It's unforgiving. It's relentless. It's spinning around so fast, it's gravity. It's like a giant slingshot, slinging rocks, dust, electrons, whole comets. Anything that gets close to it becomes its weapon.
It says, it is theorized that the Jovian atmosphere, by the way, you know where this word Jupiter, did you know this traces back to the word Jesus? Did you know Jesus is feminine? Everybody knows that, right? It means she, not he, but she will save. She will save. Not Yahweh will save. That's what the word Yahweh means. But she will save. It is theorized that the Jovian atmosphere is similar to that of the primitive earth. Remember the earth that was turned over to Satan? The primitive earth? And that the stupendous bolts of lightning observed in its cloud layers are, they say perhaps, duplicating the evolution of Earth's atmosphere. That is, primitive Earth's atmosphere that she once ruled. Primitive Earth's atmosphere that she once ruled and brought to destruction. The one that Yahweh hovered over and says, now I will bring forth my wife, my children, my family, not from these created Malachims that can turn at any moment, but from flesh. Not from these created Malachims that can turn at any moment, but from flesh. Picture this in your mind, brethren, because what Yahweh shows us there in the first 5 books of Moshe is the kingdom. It's the kingdom of heaven. How Yahweh is made, man is made. It's the kingdom of heaven. How Yahweh is made, man is made. Now you think about it. And Yahweh says, I'm going to build my family now from this fleshly, earthly family. And Yahweh says, I'm going to build my family now from this fleshly, earthly family.
But that's the way Adam and Eve were made. Adam and Eve didn't have blood. Oh boy. Now, you can be thinking on this. You won't understand it till I explain it. And it's a way down the line before I'll explain it. But they didn't have blood when they were created. They had they had the tree of life, eternal life. When they turned to sin, that's when a substitute had to move into their veins. Yahweh didn't put it there. Read your scriptures and read your scriptures. Come on, just listen to me. Read your scriptures. He breathed into them the breath of life. He didn't put in them the blood at that time. They took that on their own. And it was a mixture that had to fight off the evil that we started putting in our bodies with sin.
Well, I'll stop there. I won't give you any more information. But I will later. No, I'll bring it out later. I'll bring it in a full sermon. But, brethren, it's beautiful once you understand the plan of Yahweh and what He's doing. And then you see what He's prophesied, and He gives you the details of what we're going through even today. Jupiter has an extensive magnetic field that shoots out high-speed electrons against the solar wind at least as far as Mercury.
Jupiter is also the planet with the largest magnetic field. Its magnetosphere is huge. If you were to look up into the night sky, and if you could see the outline of its magnetosphere, which you can't, it would be about the size of the moon in the sky. It's a very, very large magnetosphere. In fact, in the Voyager program, we learned that the magnetic tail, the part of the magnetosphere that is drawn away from the sun, extends all the way out to the orbit of Saturn and in all likelihood beyond.
I remember the NASA showing that the sun was having explosions, flaring up, tornadoes leaving the sun, coming towards the earth, being pulled back in, planets getting out of control, tottering, as the scripture shows, tottering, planets tottering. And of course, Yahweh, when he designed the heavens, he designed certain stars, as he shows in the Holy Scriptures, that actually pulled these planets back, actually caught hold of them, pulled them back into line. Yahweh set it up with the heavens. Now you think of the governments in heaven that he has in charge of certain stars, or all the stars. Think of the governments in heaven that he has in charge of certain stars, or all the stars, all the planets, things that we don't even know of.
We have a new analysis of images obtained by Cassini that show the F ring is actually even more dynamic than we thought. And for the first time, we can see some of the objects about a kilometer in diameter. This movie shows the trail of one of the 500 or so tiny objects that we see of the F ring. We've highlighted the area where these trails can be seen. These are slow-speed collisions, but they drag these glittering ice particles out of the F ring with them. Cassini scientists have been calling these trails mini-jets. They look tiny because in the full image you're looking along about 10,000 kilometers of the F ring. And what we didn't notice at the time was one of these tiny little trails had sort of sneaked into the field of view. But now we've done things a bit more methodically. We've actually looked at about 20,000 images, and we found lots of these little guys, and some of them we just caught in the act. So far we've seen about 500 of these objects in the Cassini images. Some of them may even be the same object. What's important about these images is that these little guys are the missing link.
Things that we don't even know of.
These little guys are the missing link. These little guys created channels, ripples, snowballs in the F ring. We know also that these little guys can probably destroy some of these things, just like it can create them, can also change their orbits. Can probably destroy some of these things, just like it can create them, can also change their orbits. The F ring keeps changing. It's the only thing you can rely on in the F ring. Every time you look at it, it'll be different.
You couldn't do it. The earth couldn't do without the sun or the moon. Those are the two ruling bodies of the earth. You've got to have them. Man couldn't even live. Life couldn't even exist without the sun and the moon. But there's other planets that have effect on this earth. But there's other planets that have effect on this earth. And he established it that the earth has to be protected because he has a creation going on there that belongs to him. Now that's what the scripture shows. You belong to him, and the earth belongs to him. I've got to get just a little of this biology in. Can't get it all in, but I'll read you some. Scientists explain how Earth's magnetic field connects all living systems. The facts, these are facts that they can prove now. Earth, as well as all other living systems, have a magnetic field, and scientists are discovering that these fields connect us all. These fields connect us all. Wow, wow, wow. These fields. Now this is something we can't see, but now they know it's there, and they can detect it with the instruments that they have, and they can actually prove this.
ESO telescopes are being used to search for the subtle signs of magnetic fields in other stars, and even to map out the star spots on their surfaces. This information is beginning to reveal how and why so many stars, including our own sun, are magnetic, and what the implications might be for life on Earth and elsewhere in the universe. And what the implications might be for life on Earth and elsewhere in the universe. The sun is not unique in being magnetic. Most stars in our galaxy harbor a magnetic field of some kind. Astronomers have found that most stars are magnetic, but in very different ways. So different processes must be at work to generate and sustain these magnetic fields. Different processes must be at work to generate and sustain these magnetic fields. We now know that these magnetic fields in turn have a big impact on how stars behave throughout their lives. Magnetism has effects throughout the universe, from the Earth's surface right out to the most distant exploding stars. Magnetism has effects throughout the universe, from the Earth's surface right out to the most distant exploding stars. Polarization measurements help astronomers to understand the magnetic properties of our own star and all the other stars in the universe.
They're calling it a magnetic field. It's a little bit more than that I see in the scriptures. It's more than just a magnet, if that's what you got in mind, something that sucks you to earth if you jump up off of the ground or jump off of something, like a magnet that pulls you. It's similar to that, but it involves a lot more than that, and it's got to be combined with billions of other systems, billions of other systems have a magnetic field, and scientists are discovering that these fields connect all of us, every human being, and actually carry biologically relevant information. This is this magnetic field that you cannot see. It connects everyone. It connects everyone.
This word, foundations, it's a body of consulting officials in heaven. Now, that's the best way I could put it, where you'd understand the foundation, the foundations, like the consulting officers that consult with Yahweh in the forming or creating of any planet, no matter what it is. The foundations, if you look at it further, it means the earth, of course, and of course we're speaking of the earth, but we're speaking of how it actually connects with the rest of the universe. It actually connects with the rest of the universe, the solar systems, the galaxies that are out there already.
If you remember Daniel, he didn't speak to anyone except the one wearing the linen. The reason being, as we see so far, there might be other things behind this. The linen, if you remember the facts, Earth as well as other living systems have a magnetic field. I said that needs to be called magnetic, electronic, emotional field. Now, there's some other words I want to put in there, but this just don't cover it, a magnetic field that they're trying to describe here, because it takes in too many things, including your heart, which puts out frequencies. And this is the feelings that you get That's the best way I know how to describe it right now. But your heart reaches out, and but you can feel it almost. Sometimes it becomes emotional. The things that comes forth from the heart for your wife or your children or your husbands, that is coming forth from the heart.
Science is also beginning to understand that the electromagnetic field around the heart has a powerful effect on not just the human body, but others around you as well. The brain and the heart are both electromagnetic field generators, but the heart has a field that is so much more powerful than the brain. In fact, the heart is 100 times electrically stronger and up to 5,000 times stronger magnetically than the brain. In the field of neurocardiology, scientists have discovered that the heart possesses its own intrinsic nervous system, a network of brain cells with over 40,000 neurons. This gives the heart the ability to independently sense and process information.
But there's a great deal of difference in the heart. It has its own mind. It has its own mind, but it's in unity with the mind in your head sometimes. Not always. Sometimes it differs. And sometimes it'll pull what you have in your head, it'll push it aside and go its own way. And it gets things done. Each thing in your body puts off what they call a frequency, and it has its own signature. Each thing in your body puts off what they call a frequency, and it has its own signature.
Bioelectromagnetics, also known as bioelectromagnetism, is the study of the interaction between electromagnetic fields and biological entities. Electromagnetic fields and biological entities. Areas of study include electrical or electromagnetic fields produced by living cells, tissues or organisms, for example, the cell membrane potential and the electric currents that flow in nerves and muscles, as a result of action potentials. Others include animal navigation utilizing the geomagnetic field. The term can also refer to the ability of living cells, tissues, and organisms to produce electrical fields and the response of cells to electromagnetic fields. Short-lived electrical events called action potentials occur in several type cells which are called excitable cells. A category of cell include neurons, muscle cells, and endocrine cells, as well as in some plant cells. These action potentials are used to facilitate intercellular communication and activate intracellular processes. Most of the molecules in the human body interact weakly with electromagnetic fields in the radio frequency or extremely low frequency bands.
Well, frequency and signature, it's signed, that's it. The frequencies that is given off by cotton, I believe I was told that it was something like 99, right? 99, 100. 100 frequencies per unit. Now, these are the frequencies that the biology shows calls a system, a living system that is going out in something like radio waves.
Earth moves through an even larger magnetic field, that of the sun. Massive currents flowing beneath the solar surface give rise to a vast magnetic bubble that envelops every planet in the solar system. The Milky Way's magnetic field stretches across more than 100,000 light-years, mapping its structure, proof of a galactic dynamo at work.
A living system that is going out in something like radio waves. I've got it pictured for some reason in my mind, what is shown in the scriptures about rivers of living water going out through the universe, flowing through the universe with the 12 trees and the 12 fruits that Yeshua pictured. Surely you've gotten enough from that to know that these are like rivers of water, but they're rivers of information. Well, anyway, the frequency. Now, signature is, get this, read you this part of it. Signatures are frequencies. That's what a signature is. Signatures are frequencies that help define who we are. Signatures are frequencies that help define who we are. They have a magnetic field, and scientists are discovering that these fields connect us all. They connect us all. Get that?
Bioelectrodynamics is a branch of medical physics and bioelectromagnetism which deals with rapidly changing electric and magnetic fields in biological systems, that is high-frequency endogenous electromagnetic phenomena in living cells. Other indirect evidence comes from the fact that mechanical vibrations were experimentally proven in very broad frequency range in cells. Since many structures in cells are electrically polar,
magnetic lines of force converge and reconfigure, resulting in magnetic energy and charged particles flying off at intense speeds.
And actually carry biologically relevant information. So these magnetic fields that we're involved in, that send our messages, or bring, if you're at the other end, which is Yahweh's throne, bring our messages, a living system that is going out in something like radio waves,
Guglielmo Marconi's first radio transmissions in 1894 have spread into space for over 100 years at the speed of light. They passed Sirius in 1903, Vega in 1919, and Regulus in 1971. That signal has already passed over 1,000 stars. Anyone orbiting one of those stars with a receiver could detect Marconi's signal and know that we are here. Then, in 1932, a major discovery by Carl Jansky at Bell Labs revealed the stars and other objects in space radiated radio waves.
It turns out that space can make music if you know how to listen. The heliosphere is a vast bubble of magnetism that surrounds the sun and planets. It is, essentially, the sun's magnetic field inflated to enormous proportions by the solar wind. Inside the heliosphere is home. Outside lies interstellar space, the realm of the stars. We need solar events to trigger plasma oscillations. The key players are CMEs, hot clouds of gas that blast into space when solar magnetic fields erupt. A typical CME takes 2 or 3 days to reach Earth. When the effects of a CME pass through the plasma, they excite oscillations akin to fingers strumming the strings on a guitar.
And actually carry biologically relevant information. So these magnetic fields that we're involved in, that send our messages, or bring, if you're at the other end, which is Yahweh's throne, bring our messages, not just in words, but what we're doing. Not just in words, but what we're doing. What we're doing also. Every hair on your head is numbered. Yahweh knows everything you do. He's in touch with everything you do, everything you say. It said you're to be arrayed in fine linen, because fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. It carries the righteous waves, the frequencies, with our signature attached to it throughout the heavens right now. And Yahweh is running the universe right now. His time is taken up running this universe, keeping it in line. You're going to be a portion of taking part of those jobs off of Yahweh. This is a big universe. Look at it. NASA shows you a small portion of it, but NASA hasn't seen the ends of the universe yet either. And think of this little group. This little group has got to multiply, breed and multiply and train workers to take over these planets, to go and teach these planets. That's the job that Yahweh calls you to do. It's a magnificent job. It's the greatest job of any person could ever be called to. You are the elect, brethren. You are the elect, brethren. The earth is defiled. The firmament is defiled. We've taken our sins into the heavens now. Into the heavens in rocket ships. Into the heavens in rocket ships. Into the heavens in rocket ships. Into the heavens in rocket ships.
We have a liftoff. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds forward, drift. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
One of the most overlooked details in this historic and scientific achievement of the mission that landed the first 2 human beings on the moon in the 7th Roman month in 1969 was that it also marked a symbolic event for the Christian faith. The event took place in between the time of landing the lunar module and Neil Armstrong's taking his first steps on the lunar surface. That event was the Christian sacrament of communion. This was the first and only time it has ever been done on any astronomical body other than the Earth itself. Although astronaut Neil Armstrong would take his first step on the lunar surface for all of mankind, astronaut Buzz Aldrin privately observed for all mankind communion elements he had personally brought with him to the surface of the moon.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
This magnetic field that they've discovered, it has to do not only with you, but with everybody that you are in touch with. And right now, you're in touch with heaven itself. You're in touch with heaven itself. Wow, wow, wow. This is going out not only to everyone on earth, this right now from you, it's actually causing people to tune in the broadcast or to not tune into it. It could be. It could be, if you want to put it this way, a little voice telling them to pick up the phone or to go to a certain site on that computer they have. All of these things are possible with what they've discovered right now that's coming forth from each individual. So whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, there's a signal right now that's going forth from you, either righteous or evil. From you, either righteous or evil. One of the two. What you're doing right now is going on your record. It's being written about you in heaven and in earth. Yahweh bless your understanding. I love you. I'll turn the services back to the next leader. I love you. I want to be all yours, Yahweh, and follow everything you say and never turn away.
Just a few announcements before we have closing prayer. Attention all men who have assignments for the one-day event tomorrow. Please meet in the conference room immediately after the film here. So right after the film here, which is over, please meet in the conference room for the one-day assignments. And then also, men, we will have cleanup immediately after a closing prayer. Okay, if you raise your hands. Most holy and righteous Heavenly Father, Yahweh, great Father in heaven, this is Kohan Zephaniah Hawkins, coming along with all your people here, Father Yahweh, in these last days. We come in unity with the body of priests of the House of Yahweh, a seed of Yeshua Hawkins through Yeshua Messiah, great high priest. Father Yahweh, that was a tremendous film put together, Father, showing the truly magnificence that you have in store for your people, Father, and the enormous jobs that we heard about in that film and throughout the teachings of your servant Yeshua Hawkins. Father, we do believe these things, and we might not understand them all, Father, at this time, but we do know that your plan for mankind is truly great and beyond comprehension. We do pray, Father Yahweh, that you bless your people, Father. Help all of us to use that as a boost to overcome and to put forth the effort needed to get the last little bit of sin out of our lives, that we might be complete and perfect, lacking nothing, and help us to help one another, Father, and bring this house to perfection, that your kingdom may come. We do pray for our great overseer, Yeshua Hawkins, Father. May you, we do pray for our great teacher, Yeshua Hawkins. Please bless him, Father Yahweh, continually with that great information and knowledge that he needs to teach us these things, Father, that we will be ready for these jobs. We do love you and praise you and ask this as a seed and servant of Yeshua Hawkins, through Yeshua Messiah. Hallelujah.